G'day guys, I've just got back from Radicalism, an ITC major event where I took 3 World Eaters Land Raiders, I played 6 grueling games of Warhammer 40k, and I only lost a single game. So in today's video, we're going vlog style. I'm going to take you with me through the entire journey from preparation for the event to the event itself, talking about all of my games, all of the results, sharing the scores, the strategies and the tactics, what worked, what didn't, and we're going to go through the entirety of the event. I hope you enjoy it.
Log for the Blood God.
G'day guys, it's 4 AM here in Melbourne and I've just got up getting ready to go to the Radicalism ITC major event in Ballarat, Victoria. And I decided for this one I'm going to do something a little bit different and hit you guys with a vlog. I'm going to record the entire trip, everything from getting ready for the tournament, going to the tournament, the games at the tournament, going out for dinner afterwards, traveling home, everything. So we'll do it in vlog style and yeah, enjoy the trip with me.
Minutes later.
Alrighty guys, like I said, bright and early, 4 AM, we're packed, we're ready to go, we're about to hit the road. Got my army case down here. As you can see, it's just a tray full of models. And we're gonna hit the road, so yeah, wish me luck. Alrighty guys, we are well and truly on the way to Ballarat for Radicalism, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to just talk to you about the list that I'm bringing and basically give you a bit of a preview of what I'm sort of expecting out of the event. So the list that I'm running is a little bit of a meme, it's a little bit of a silly list because this is a 6-round major event and I have been working really hard at my day job, so I haven't had much time for prep. And as a result, I figured it's probably easier just to, relax and have a fun event than it is to, go meta chasing and go hardline and try to get that win. So I've run a bit of a silly list. It's a World Eaters list. It's got 3 Land Raiders in it, which is the thing that's going to make this list unique. And I think I'm the only person in the tournament, which has got around 100 players. I think I'm the only one to bring Land Raiders at all, which is fucking exciting. And yeah, basically the list is World Eaters. We've got Lord Invocatus, as always. We've got 3 units of 5 8-bound, not exalted, just regular 8-bound. Then we've got 2 units of Khorne Berserkers, 1 unit of 9 with an Icon and a single Eviscerator, and 1 unit of 10 with an Icon and 2 Eviscerators. And then 3 Land Raiders, and that's the list. It's real simple, but there's a few really interesting tricks that you can do with it. So the first thing to note is that the Lord Invocatus gives the pre-game move to the 8-bound, right? So this has the similar Alpha Strike capacity of your top of the meta World Eaters list, right? So if I get first turn, I can pre-game move that 11 inches, then move 11 inches further, go in, do a turn 1 charge with 2 units of 8-bound and the Lord Invocatus, and just do massive amounts of damage to my opponent. So if they're not prepared, that Alpha Strike is very, very real. However, what my list can do that's unique is if I go second, or if my opponent has sufficiently screened me out to the point where that Alpha Strike is not going to do damage, I can actually pre-game move those 8-bound and embark in one of the Land Raiders. Because all you have to do to embark in a transport is finish a normal move within 3 inches. So basically, as long as I deploy those units 14 inches away from my Land Raiders, then and they're empty Land Raiders, then if my opponent goes first, I don't have to worry about them shooting my 8-bound off the table before I get to strike. I can just go, cool, I'm just going to pre-game move, back into the Land Raider, and now my Land Raider, which is probably out of line of sight as well. So the Land Raider is safe, and the 8-bound is safe. So that's if my opponent goes first, whereas if I go first, I go full send with the 8-bound. So that's one way that this list can function. The other way, depending on the table and all those sorts of things, is I can basically put the Khorne Berserkers inside 2 of the Land Raiders, 1 unit of 8-bound inside the 3rd, and then send the other 2 8-bound in as the Alpha Strike. This is what I'd do if the table was dense enough, if there was enough terrain that I knew that if my opponent went first, I'd be able to hide the 8-bound as well. But if there's not enough terrain to hide the 8-bound, that's when or if they had sufficient barrage or something like that, that's when I'd go, okay, cool, I need to keep 2 of those transports empty so that I can pre-game move into them. So depending on whether or not I have to keep those transports empty, those Khorne Berserkers are either going to deploy inside the Land Raiders, or they're going to go into strategic reserves. Now, I really like the Khorne Berserkers in strategic reserves because they come on from their table edge with a 3d6 drop the lowest, rerollable 8-inch charge, pending blood type. So that's very reliable. It's in the high 80% range of reliability on charges. I did there's a chart over on my website, blogforthebloodgod.com, where I broke down all the different charge percentages so that you can work out your probability and make decisions based on that. But yeah, I really like the World Eaters, the Berserkers coming in from strategic reserves, very reliable charges, and then they go to do massive amounts of damage. So they don't necessarily need the transports. The transports are mainly there to facilitate the 8-bound. And the good thing about the 8-bound is, say I go second and I have to redeploy essentially into my transports. What I can then do is also redeploy the Lord Invocator, so he's behind a Land Raider, so he's safe. He's not going to get shot turn 1. And then in my opponent's turn, they're going to move around, they're going to do whatever they want to do. They're not going to do much damage to me because I'm Land Raiders out of line of sight. And then what I can do then is I can send those 8-bound out of the Land Raider, and they go basically a 3-inch disembark, plus a 9-inch move, so that's 12 inches, plus the 2 inches that the Lord Invocatus grants, so that's 14 inches, and then they can charge. So that's a huge distance that these 8-bound can cover, which just means that your opponent, if you do that, your opponent can't even think about touching any of those central objectives without knowing that the response is going to be, you're going to cop 8-bound to the face. So yeah, 8-bound in Land Raiders is really, really interesting. Now, the Land Raiders themselves, yes, they're not the most points efficient unit in the game. They've got a lot of drawbacks, but the World Eaters ones and the Chaos Space Marine ones as well have a few advantages over the Imperial ones, and I think a lot of people, they think Land Raider, they think Imperial. So it's worth noting that our las cannons are D6 plus 2 damage, which is really relevant. It means you're getting an average roll of like 5.5, 6 damage on average rolls, which is very, very good. As compared to the Loyalists, which are just D6 damage, so an average of like 3.5. So you're nearly double damage on our las cannons, which is pretty crazy. The other thing that we have is we're toughness 9, and we've got our 2-up save. So our Land Raiders are just really, really hard to put down. Like the melter guns and the like, they just bounce. They bounce off the Land Raiders. It's so strong. Which means that our Land Raiders, compared to the others, are a much more durable fire base, which is something that the World Eaters don't really have a lot of. Even Chaos Space Marines, they don't have a lot of. So having that durable unit that's able to contribute meaningful damage downrange is really, really cool. And also they can transport 8-bound, which is just insane. 5 8-bound in a Land Raider, being able to launch out and do massive damage is just insane. So yeah, so the Land Raiders are really cool. And one of the things the Land Raiders unlocks for the World Eaters, which is really interesting, is they unlock the ability to pop transports so that you can then charge the occupants, which is something that World Eaters desperately need. Whereas if you're running a traditional World Eaters list, you're going to be charging transports, popping the transport, but then they just pile out their objective secured guys onto the objectives that you're trying to hold, and it can become a real pain. Whereas the Land Raiders, when you've got 3 of them, you've got enough las cannons to reliably pop people's transports and then charge the guys that were inside. And also it allows you to clear screens for that 8-bound charge. So if somebody puts 10 guardsmen out front and they're like, yep, this is going to block your 8-bound, so the 8-bound can't move over the top of me, and that means that the 8-bound are going to be, not as efficient on their turn 1 charge. You're like, oh, it's not actually that big of a problem because I'm just going to use the heavy bolters on all my Land Raiders to just clear out that guard squad. So there's a few things that the Land Raider heavy World Leaders list can do that the others can't. Obviously, it loses out on a lot of the very, very powerful elements of the World Leaders. So this is by no means an optimized tournament, list. It doesn't have the Spawn, which are a really, really high value unit in the World Leaders. It doesn't have Exalted 8-bound, which are point for point absolutely insane. The fact that they have the 4-up invulnerable save, the fact that they have such high strength, AP, and damage, they're just really, really efficient and effective little units. The way they stop enemies from being able to fall back can be absolutely game-changing. Exalted 8-bound are amazing, and this list doesn't have any. And it also only has the single character, which makes it not very flexible in terms of what you can do. Like if you do the Alpha Strike, you send your Lord Invocatus out with the 8-bound, you're going to kill a whole ton of stuff, they're going to kill you back, and now you have no characters left, which means you have no buffs, you've got no concentrated damage dealers. It can become very anemic very fast, this list, so... But yeah, that's sort of the list. That's a summary of the way it sort of works. It's pretty simple. One of the really cool things about this list also is that it gives up almost nothing in terms of secondary objectives. Like, your opponent's not going to take Assassinate against you, given you only have a single character. No prisoners, and Bring It Down. It doesn't score very high on. If you kill all 3 Land Raiders, you're going to get 9 victory points. But most people are not going to be able to kill all 3 Land Raiders when they're busy dealing with Exalted, with the 8-bound in their face, and Berserkers coming in from Strat Reserves, and the fact that Land Raiders are so tough, people will struggle to deal with them, so people will not like to take Bring It Down. No prisoners, doesn't give up very many. I think it gives up like 5 or maybe 6 victory points for that. Grind Them Down, it gives up very few points, because there's very few units, so your opponent's ability to kill more than you is very limited. So it's an interesting list in that regard, whereas the traditional World Leaders list is, with like 3 units of 8-bound, 3 units of Exalted 8-bound, and a whole ton of Berserkers. Like, that list gives up no prisoners like crazy. That list is vulnerable to grind them down, because your opponent's able to, go, cool, I'm going to pick up these couple of units of 3 here, and, pick up a Rhino here and there to shore up that difference in kills, so it's vulnerable to that. And depending on how many Rhinos you take, sometimes it can be vulnerable to Bring It Down if you take too many transports. So, and obviously the Chaos Spawn, they also make you vulnerable to Grind Them Down, so that list has got a lot of vulnerability in its secondaries, whereas mine does not, so it should be interesting. But yeah, so that sort of sums it up. I guess quickly touch on my expectations for the event. It's a 6-round event. I'm hoping to go 4 wins, 2 losses. That's probably reasonable. Maybe 3 and 3. It depends. This list, like I said, it's not optimized, and I'm very tired, so it's going to be an interesting one. I've been kind of burning the candle at both ends this week, because I've got the Australian Team Championships, for which I'm the captain of my home state of Victoria, so I've been doing a lot of prep work for that. I've been appearing on other people's channels, like I was on the Risky Rollers live stream last night. We were up until nearly midnight. Got home about 1 AM, and then I had to start work at fucking 6 AM, which meant I had to get out of bed at 4:30, so last night I got like 3 hours sleep. It's been stock takes during the week at work, so there's been very little sleep there. So I'm going into this event on a quarter tank and also with a meme list, so I'm not predicting anything, too exciting, but it is a cool list. It's got some interesting tricks to it, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. Alright, I'll hear you guys back when I arrive in Ballarat. ladies and gentlemen, we are almost at Ballarat. We've got probably half an hour left on the road. Just pulled over for a quick pit stop, take a piss, show you guys the fantastic Victorian lovely weather. We're getting some light rain. It's very misty. And I just wanted to update you on what RatCon and Radicalism and these Ballarat tournament scene is, because it's very interesting. So Ballarat is a medium-sized sort of city, small town kind of vibe town above Melbourne, about 2 hours from home for me, so just upside of Melbourne. And they run a lot of the best Melbourne-based or Victorian-based Warhammer 40k tournaments. This one's about 100 players. They normally get 100 odd players to their tournaments. This event is Radicalism, which is their competitively focused, ITC major event, 6 rounds, hardcore sort of gaming style event. But they also do another really exciting one called RatCon, which I've done videos on this channel for before. But RatCon is basically, in addition to your battle score, the TOs award a presentation score, which is based on how well your army is presented. That goes towards your total overall score and determines the winner. So there's a bit of an incentive there to have a beautifully painted army, which makes RatCon a really interesting one. And they also do some slight alterations to the missions to make it rat themed, because Ballarat, RatCon, that's the deal. And yeah, the Ballarat guys put on an amazing show, so shout out to them. And yeah, I just wanted to hit you guys with a bit of an update on that, and then let's hit back on the road and let's get our fucking asses to Ballarat. Alrighty guys, update on my Radicalism weekend. We've just finished round 1. We're going into our lunch break now, and we're doing Armies on parade, or the displays. So I'm going to walk you through the event, talk about that, and then also hit you guys with the results of my first game. So I guess I'll just do a real quick recap on the first game. I was up against Guard, and basically I was able to deploy my Land Raiders out of line of sight. He had a bunch of infantry squads, a bunch of tanks, a bunch of artillery pieces. I was able to basically stay out of line of sight of the majority of his shooting. He went first, so I used my pre-game move to redeploy the 8-bound back into the Land Raiders. He moved everything up. He failed to kill the Land Raiders. Then in my turn 2, I was able to disembark out of the Land Raiders, get charges, kill all of his infantry. Then turn 2, I was able to bring in the World Eaters, the Berserkers, sorry, from strat reserves, 3d6, picked the highest charge, tagged all of his artillery, tagged all of his tanks, and it was pretty much game over. So relatively quick, relatively easy game. Good start to the event, got a 100-point win. And now we're going to do a walk around of the venue and have a look at some of the armies on display. And let's have a look-see. So what do we got? We got first list, the Chad Raiders, 3 Land Raiders, 8-bound. This is obviously my army. Sick as. Alright, let's have a look through here. What do we got? We got Imperial Knight Army with a ton of armages. We've got Guard Army here. Some beautiful camo patterns on those guys there. Another Guard Army here. Looks like 6 Chimeras with infantry in it and a bunch of tanks. Very cool. We've got Tau. We've got, what's over on this table here? Custodes, Golden Bananas. We've got Cogs of Vashtor. This is a good friend of mine, Boyd. Cogs of Vashtor with 3 Decimators, 3 Venom Crawlers, a couple of Forge Fiends, a couple of Disco Lords. Then what do we got? Let's do this line of tables. Absolutely gorgeous Chaos Knights army there. Then we've got the other Vashtor list. There's only 2 at the event, so similar thing. Multiple Decimators, multiple Venom Crawlers, but this one's got the big old brass Scorpion as well. Then what do we got on this table? We've got a really cool Tau Empire build. Very, very cool. And then over here we've got, looks like Imperial Fists. taking to the fray. That's cool. Nothing on this one. Fucking hell. Oh, that's Rob. Cool shit there. What do we got here? We got... This looks like flesh tearers, I believe. Blood Angels list. I somehow doubt he's running those as Blood Angels, given that there's no Sangard or Death Company, but you never know. More Custodes. Leagues of Votan. Fucking artillery out the arse on this list. Very cool. What do we got here? Got some wave serpents, some bikes, some artillery. Cool shit. What do we got there? We got more demons. This is the list I versed round 1. Very cool artillery heavy list. Got knights there. More knights down there. Looks like Tyranids down here. What do we got here? We got Thousand Suns. We got Magnus. We got a bunch of Scarab Occult. A bunch of guys. Oh, look at that booty. Look at that booty. That is a bootylicious keeper of secrets right there. What do we got on this side? We got a Towner.
Oh, this is a Slanesh guy.
And then we got a Slanesh Demons list. Very cool. What do we got over here? We've got, what are they called? The Hounds of Griffin? Griffin Hounds? This is Tim Waggers from Miniature Scenery. He's the bloke that made all the terrain for these events. Really cool dude. Very cool list. Then what do we got over here? We got some Tau, more Tau. So quite a lot of Tau at this event. Surprisingly large number of Tau. Over here we got... Oh, look at this. This looks like 4 armies. We got World Eaters. And looks like Iron Warriors. So it looks like 4 players have put their armies together for this one. Because then we've got some Knights there. Combined with some Ultramarines. Very thematic setup, I like it. What else have we got? That's where we go. Oh, look at this for a fucking sick Necron army. All these cubes built up to make the fucking Silent King extra fucking impressive. Someone's jizzed all over it. Very cool. What else have we got? We got some kind of very old school Marine army with scout bikers. Got some yellow CSM there. So that's everything in this room. Now let's go have a look into the other room. There's 2 rooms set up for tables. The bar there where I've already put like $60. Because why not? Some prizes and shit. Let's have a look down here. Are there any set up in here? Alright, we've got... Looks like Admech. We've got another World Eaters list. Oh, it's got Angron. Very cool. Angron, Dim Prince, 8-bound, Berserkers, more 8-bound, Avocado Man, Dreadclaw, very cool list. What do we got over here? We got a Demons list here. Fleshhounds, Skull Cannons.
Sorry about the Scarbrand at the back. He's just hiding.
Scarbrand being a sneaky bitch down the back there. Very cool. What do we got? We got some Crons in those cases there. Some Knights over there. Some exceptionally shiny Crons here.
The rest of us are just like, yeah, we can live with sleep. He's like,
what else have we got? We got more Knights down here. More Crons over there. More Guard. So there's lots of Guard at this event. We've got some Space Wolves down there. More Guard over here. That being said, I think this is the first Guard list I've seen with Leontis in it.
Rough Riders. We got some demons down here.
Give me 5. I didn't realise it was armies on parade now.
You're
going to want this. It's a hilariously stupid army.
I can see already the
There's 6 predators.
6 predators and a. Is that a Fellblade?
Fellblade.
Oosh.
Reason I was over in turn 2.
That's very cool. We'll have to circle back and get that one. Oh, you've even got propaganda. Is this your propaganda? Major General Heinz Guberman? Achtung Panzer.
He's the guy that invaded France.
Checks out.
He's the guy that wrote Blitzkrieg. You know,
Very cool. Yes.
for historical reasons.
Yeah, his legend persists 40,000 years from now.
I'm not doing very well for him.
Yeah, and then we got, what's this, some more Eldar here. So that more or less wraps it up. All the armies at this event. So, yeah, that's a wrap-up of the armies on display, on parade, or whatever you want to call it. And lunch break should be finished soonish, and we'll jump into round 2, and I'll let you guys know how we go. G'day guys, that's round 2 of Radicalism done and dusted. It's behind us, and I got paired into another guard player this time, Tristan Dodds. Really sick game. His list was pure mechanized though. He had 2 chimeras with infantry inside of it, and then just a fuck ton of tanks. He had a Baneblade, he had a bunch of smaller shit, Lehman Russ, a bunch of Basilisks, a bunch of cool shit. And in this game, I got the glorious first turn. So basically, I had the 8-bound poised, ready for that Alpha Strike. He redeployed a few of his units to be a little bit further back, but unfortunately, he wasn't able to deploy far enough back because of the sheer footprint of his army. There was just so many, so many tanks that he just didn't have the room, which meant he had to deploy where I was able to get him. Went in, turn 1, the Land Raiders shot, killed one of his Lehman Russ. Then the 8-bound charged, killed both Chimeras and both Hellhounds, and tagged the infantry squads that were inside. And it was fucking game over at that point. Turn 1, I brought on my 3rd unit of 8-bound behind a ruined wall that was near his deployment, so that, because they come on strat reserve, so I came up from my battlefield edge near his deployment, and that meant that I was poised in a place where he couldn't shoot me, but I was able to, next turn, jump out and pop him. And we had the Lord Invocatus tag both of his Basilisks in the first turn, so he wasn't able to shoot me with those. So pretty much the only thing he had left that was valid for shooting was one of his tank commanders and his Baneblade. He then proceeded to put a bunch of shooting in to the Land Raiders, failed to pop them, and failed to kill all the 8-bound. So then the 8-bound tied him up, and it was pretty much game over by turn 1. It was a fucking disaster for him. I got some interesting photos which I'll put up on the screen now, but yeah, you can see I basically just boxed him in his deployment zone. He didn't come out at all, and that meant that his secondary game was really weak. His ability to control primary was really weak because it was data scry salvage, so I just held the middle of the board with my Land Raiders and tailed him up. So it's a 96 points to me, 20 points to him. Big win. And so that puts me on 2 wins so far, and we're about to go into game 3, so I'll hit you guys back with those results when they come in. G'day guys, day 2, we've finished round 3 last night, and we're about to go into round 4. I won the last round as well, so I'm currently sitting on 3 wins, and just as many wins as I have Land Raiders, which is cool. Basically, last round I went up against Boyd and his Cogs of Vashtor list. Really, really interesting list. He had Vashtor himself, 3 Decimators, he had a couple of Forge Fiends, 3 Venom Crawlers, and some Spawn, and a couple of Disco Lords. So a really, really cool Demon Engine list. Unfortunately for Boyd, there's a 2 Blood Tithe point ability that gives you 5-up Feel No Pain saves against mortal wounds. So I was able to pop that early, and then he's really struggled with those Decimators to do meaningful damage. I got the Alpha Strike with the 8-bound, but didn't really kill that much with him, but I basically boxed him into his deployment zone with almost everything, and then he was able to he basically strat reserved his Decimators and Vashtor and went for my backline, but he failed to kill the Land Raiders fast enough, and then the Land Raiders were able to shoot him and killed a bunch of Decimators, whilst the 8-bound kept him boxed in his deployment zone, and the Berserkers sort of came on and did objective control and cleanup. So pretty big win there. We'll put the scores up in a moment. And now we're going into round 4. So this is the spicy end of the event, where we've got the number of undefeated players is getting smaller. So we're going to start getting into some more heavy games here. So wish me luck, and we'll see what's going to happen in the next round. I'll hit you guys back with an update soon. Alrighty guys, quick update. Round 4 is done and dusted. I got paired into my 3rd guard player of the event. This time Alex Fran's much more optimized list than the previous versions that I versed, and a much more competent player. He's a really good mate of mine. He's really good on his guard. And I ended up making it a 68 point to 68 point draw. So real interesting. It was a very tight game the whole time. He was screening me out perfectly with his guard. He was using the orders to make it so I couldn't bring in strat reserves near him. And as a result, he was just pushing my Berserkers back and back. My hope was that the 8-bound would be able to go in, kill all of his infantry first, and then make it so that he couldn't continue to scream me out forever. However, he got the first turn, so I had to use my pre-game move to get my 8-bound back inside the Land Raiders so he doesn't just kill them all with his artillery. Which then meant I wasn't able to get that hyper-aggressive move to get all of his infantry dug out. So we ended up having this game where it's like I'd trade a unit of 8-bound for 2 units of infantry, but then he'd replace them with another 2 units. Then the next turn, I'd trade 8-bound for another 2 units of infantry, then he'd replace them with 2 units, and it was basically a trading game going back and forth. So yeah, really tight game. He played it very well, and we got a draw. So that means I'm now on 3 wins and a draw, going into round 5. There's 2 more rounds at the event, so I'll hit you guys back when we're done with those, and yeah, we'll see how we go. Alright, g'day guys. Quick update on round 5. I went into Terrence Drew and his Space Wolves. So his list had a bunch of Dreadnoughts, a bunch of Wolfen, a bunch of attack bikes, a whole bunch of bits and pieces like that, some characters, a smattering of characters, a couple of units of infiltrators, and a few units of intercessors with thunderhammers in them. So this was a pretty favourable matchup for me, I believe, because basically we're both going to be fighting on death, we're both going to be interrupting, we're both going to be heroically intervening, so very similar lists in a lot of ways. But I have a much more probable alpha strike if I go first, whereas he doesn't. If he goes first, I can basically prevent him from doing any alpha strike. It's much harder for him to do that to me. And also, I win the shooting matchup because I've got the T9 Land Raiders, and most of his army was melter guns, which are winning me on 5s. So even though he had more shooting in his army, because of the defensive profile that was attached to my shooting, he wasn't able to do much. So the game played out pretty much exactly how I expected. So he got the first turn, so I used my pre-game moves to basically get out of his line of sight and charge range with the 8-bound. I had the Berserkers in strategic reserves. Land Raiders were all one unit of Land Raider. One Land Raider had a unit of 8-bound in it, and the other 2 Land Raiders were empty, so that if I needed to, I could have redeployed into them, but based on where he had deployed, I didn't need to do that. He got the first turn, so he basically moved everything up really aggressively because he took Oaths of the Moment, so he was trying to take the center. He did a whole bunch of charges but failed them all. He got 1 unit into an 8-bound unit which failed to kill any 8-bound, and then on the backswing I killed that, so that was 1 unit of intercessors gone. And then from there I charged all my stuff in, and there was this massive turn 2 bloodbath. It was actually a turn 1 bloodbath where I killed a whole ton of stuff, but then he killed a whole bunch of stuff, and then we were stuck in the middle. And then in his turn 2, he charged a bunch of stuff in, killed a bunch, but then I fought on death with a bunch, interrupted with a bunch, and basically by the end of the battle round 2, by the end of his battle round 2, his second turn, sorry, pretty much everything was dead. It was fucking blood soaked. But then basically, because all the center of the table was completely vacant, I was able to then go, cool, I'm going to bring on my Berserkers from strategic reserves and pick off all those things that he had dangling around the outsides of the table, and he wasn't able to claw it back. So it was a 95 point win to me. I think he got like a 57 or something, so pretty big. Pretty happy with that. And that means I'm now on 4 wins and a draw. And there's one more round left in the event. So if I win that next round, I should be looking at a podium spot with a fucking 3 Land Raider list. So that's interesting at a 100-player event. We'll see how we go. Wish me luck. Alrighty guys, there we have it, the end of round 6. So in this round, I got paired into Ed Askey and his Tau, and it was an absolutely brutal game. Basically, this terrain was, this map was really, really tough in that I had nowhere to hide the Land Raiders, nowhere. And as a result, it was going to be a deploy aggressively, pray for first turn. Because if he gets first turn, there's nowhere to hide, so there's no point trying. So I basically deployed everything on the line. You know, strat reserves was an option, but if I strat reserves against him, it's really, really hard because he can neg-2 my charges from strat reserves, and he also had tons of disposable units, little drones and things like that, that he could use to screen me out. His list had long strike, a big crisis bomb. He had a unit of broadside, so he could shoot out of line of sight relatively well. He had, you know, a bunch of commanders and shit, Tau shit. Yeah, so I was just like, you know what, the only play here is to deploy hyper aggressively and pray for first turn. And if I do that, I'll be able to go, cool, I go first, I kill long strike, I kill a bunch of crisis suits, I kill a bunch of your screening elements, and then it's, you know, a big fight in the middle, and that's a fight that I can win. So yeah, it was a sick game. Here he comes now, actually. Where is he? There's Ed there. But yeah, it was a sick game, and that puts me on 4 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw, which is a result I'm pretty happy with. And yeah, I'll let you know where my standings are at the end when the round is finished. There's still people going, so we'll see where I end up in the placings overall.
Alrighty guys, we are now headed home. Big 2 days, big 6 games. We're going to do a bit of a recap now over the event itself, my games, summary of it all. I placed 10th out of the 100-odd players at the event, which I'm pretty happy with considering I was running 3 fucking Land Raiders in my list. I was not expecting a top 10 finish. I was, you know, expecting middle of the pack somewhere. I was hoping for 3 wins, 3 losses, but I managed to get 4 wins, 1 loss and a draw. So I'm really happy with that result. And it was a ripper of an event. Lots of really sick games against some really top tier players, some really good players. So yeah, really happy with that. You've seen the summary of each round, so I won't bang on too much about that. But what I will talk about is the things in my list that were impressive to me, the things that did really well, and the areas where it would obviously be improved. Now, it's worth noting at this stage, when I wrote this list, it was all about the memes. This was it was a funny list. I wasn't writing it with the intent of it being particularly competitive. That being said, there are some things that I learned for this list that if you were looking to run a more competitive list, this would be something that you might want to consider. So one of them is that the Land Raiders were actually really good. The D6 plus 2 damage on their las cannons was surprisingly relevant. Like, I was deleting dreadnoughts like it was nobody's business. I was deleting, you know, decimators. I was killing things really, really effectively with them. That plus 2 damage meaning that you're going to be doing a minimum of 3 damage, and you can do up to 8 damage, is so much better than a standard las cannon. It's almost double. It's almost double the damage. See, that was really, they were really effective, and that basically meant that I was often actually winning the shootout. You know, if it was me versus another army that had significant ranged firepower, they might have more ranged firepower, but because my Land Raiders were toughness 9, the platform that my firepower was on was so much tougher than theirs that I would kill significantly more of theirs than they would of mine. So it was really, really interesting the way that sort of turned out. I played against 3 different guard players, and I was blowing up their tanks with my tanks. So the Chaos Space Marines do that really, really well, World Eaters included, because ours have the extra toughness and they have the extra damage output on those las cannons. One of the reasons why the World Eaters Land Raiders specifically is very, very good, there's a few reasons. One of them is that you can put a 6-up Feel No Pain on it with Blood Tithe points. That's really interesting. You can also put a 5-up Feel No Pain against Mortal Wounds on it with Blood Tithe points, which against the game when I was up against Decimators, that was really interesting and that was really, really good. It kept them alive. Basically 3 Decimators, Cogs of Vashtor Decimators, fired everything they had and didn't successfully kill a single Land Raider. Like, they fired everything and couldn't kill a single Land Raider because of that 5-up Feel No Pain against mortals. If I didn't have that, I would have had no chance, and they would have just destroyed them. So yeah, the World Eaters have unique access to those, but the main thing is that the World Eaters uniquely benefit from the transport capacity of the Land Raider. You know, there's tons of armies out there that have Land Raiders, like Iron Warriors, for example, can make a way tougher Land Raider, you know, or, you know, there's other legions that have Land Raiders with better utility and better, you know, damage output and, you know, this, that, and whatever. But the World Eaters have probably some of the most, like, I call it power to weight ratio, where basically they've got really, really hard hitting units, but they die really easy. So it's like glass cannons, right? But like, they launch out of those Land Raiders so fast, do so much melee damage, but they're so weak, so you need to be able to put them in the Land Raiders to keep them safe. So really, really effective utilization of the transport capacity, and that's what makes them uniquely good in a World Eaters list. Do you want to bring 3 of them? Fuck no. You definitely do not want to bring 3 Land Raiders. That's if you want to be silly and have a bit of fun. But I think an argument could be made for 2, and I definitely think 1 is good. There's a few reasons that 1 is good. First of all, you're gonna generally be able to hide 1 Land Raider. It's hard to hide 2, and it's almost impossible to hide 3. So that means that your opponent's going to be able to get direct shooting on one of them. If you're able to hide one and expose the other, then you can pop smoke launchers on the one that's exposed, and generally that's going to make it really hard to put down. But if you can't hide it, you know, they become a lot easier to deal with. One of the main things is, like, out of line of sight shooting is not killing them, and if people want to get into combat, well, that's where you want them. So I think an argument could be made for 2, but you probably just want the 1. And there's a few things to consider. One is that you almost always, depending on your opponent of course, but you almost always want to deploy it with nothing inside. And the idea here is that you can use your Lord Invocatus' pre-game move to embark a unit of 8-bound into the Land Raider if your opponent gets that first turn. So, because it's 8-bound, it's a normal move, the Invocatus gives you a normal move, and if you finish a normal move within 3 inches of transport, you can embark on it. So basically, you just deploy the 8-bound units so that they're all within 14 inches of Land Raider, and then you can go, cool, if your opponent gets first, you just dip into the Land Raider, and now your opponent can't shoot your 8-bound. Unless they want to chew through a Land Raider first. So that's really, really valuable. Now, a Land Raider, you can only fit 1 unit of 5 8-bound in it, which is why an argument could be made for 2. But yeah, I played 3 different guard players, and if I didn't have the Land Raiders, I would have lost all 3 of those games, because my opponent would have just blasted my 8-bound with all their barrage, and I would have had no chance of getting into combat, making charges, and doing any damage. So the Land Raiders are absolutely clutch in that regard, but it's not just in the guard matchup. There's tons of times, like for example, if you're playing a Blood Angels player, like, if you have 8-bound on the table, they're going to use their Death Company to turn 1 charge and delete them. And yeah, you're going to fight on death and trade back, but now you're starting the game in your first turn with less 8-bound and less ability to move around because you've been pushed back into your deployment. So yeah, I just think that the Land Raider 8-bound combo is really interesting. The las cannons are good, so bringing 2 is probably worth it in that regard, because it allows you to put more damage down range. The heavy bolters allow you to clear screens out. That being said, there were regularly, I'd have all 3 of them would fire their heavy bolters at, you know, say a unit of guardsmen, and I would routinely fail to kill 10. You know, because it's 18 shots, you're hitting on 3s, so you're often only getting 12 hits. And then even if you're wounding on 3s, you know, you're still only getting like 8 wounds through, and then they get saves, so just check that it's not likely that it kills. the 10 guardsmen. So the heavy bolters were kind of just bad. They didn't really do much, but the las cannons were amazing. The las cannons were really, really good. Other elements of the list, like the Lord Invocatus and the 8-bound for that Alpha Strike, is fucking phenomenal. 8-bound is so good. They kill things really well. I wished I could have fit a couple of units of Exalted 8-bound. Like if I was to change the list today, I'd probably drop 1 Land Raider and use those points to get 2 units of Exalted 8-bound. You'd have to tweak some stuff a little bit to make that fit, but that would be really spicy. Or another unit of Berserkers for strategic reserves. But realistically, you probably want the Exalted 8-bound, because one of the challenges I had with this list was all of my reinforcements were strategic reserves, which means they have to come on from a table edge. So my more clever, my more alert opponents would just make sure that they stayed away from the table edges, and now I can't deep strike and charge them. Whereas if you have Exalted 8-bound, turn 2 you can deep strike in their deployment zone behind them, and then they're in a lot of trouble. So a couple units of Exalted 8-bound would be really nice, and it also unlocks the ability to deny your opponent's fallback, which is really spicy as well. So that's definitely the direction I'd look at taking it. And yeah, the other interesting thing is we noticed that you can actually take a Chaos Spartan and do a very similar thing, but the Spartan has a transport capacity of 25, and it's not limited. The 8-bound don't take up 2 spots in the Spartan because it's all forward wheel. So you could take a single Spartan and put fucking 3 units of 5 8-bound inside it and 2 units of fucking Exalted. Like, you just go hard. The problem is, because it's got 20 wounds, it can't be protected by obscuring terrain, which means your opponent's just going to blast at turn 1, and it's only toughness 8, so it probably just dies. So I think the Land Raider is the way to go. It just means you have to bring a couple of them, and yeah. What else is worth noting on the list? The Berserkers coming in from Strat Reserves was really, really good. The Blood Surge move did exactly nothing for me all event. There was not one instance where the Blood Surge move was relevant. So an argument could have been made to taking multiple units of 5 instead of what I did, which was taking the unit of 10 and a unit of 9. The reason that I went with those is because I figured I was going to have 2 turns of Strat Reserves charging with them, because that was their main goal. And if I'm Strat Reserves charging, I want that 3d6 and the potential reroll, and I want that to apply to the whole 10 Berserkers. I don't want to have to have 5 of them make it and then the other 5 fail. I want all 10 of them to make it into that combat. And it also allows you to do things like string that 1 unit out across multiple objectives, which I did a couple of times, which actually was one of the reasons that I got the draw into that guard player that I played round 4. Because I was able to just go, cool, I'm actually going to make a charge here, but I'm going to string out in a really long line, and I'm going to tag that objective and that objective, and I'm objective secured, so I actually take both of those off you, which puts you back to a 0 primary. Like, it takes down both your banners. Like, being able to do things like that, you can't do that when you've got 5-man units, you know. Whereas when you got 1 big 10-man, you just go, cool, that 1 10-man is going to 3d6 charge every turn. I'm going to CP reroll it if I need to. They are going very fast across the table. And then, of course, you've got the Blood Surge rule, should you need it, you know, in those situations when it comes up. So yeah, they were really good. The Land Raiders were really good. The 8-bound were really good. Like, there's not much else in the list, so not much else to really talk about. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you enjoyed this sort of more vlog style video. I'm looking to do these a little bit more often, so I would really appreciate any feedback that you have on the format and the way that I do these things. I know this one's a bit rough, but it's just sort of me testing out the format. So if you want to chuck your comments below and let me know what you think, that would be greatly appreciated. And as always, check out blogfullofbloodgod.com if you want to show your support for the channel. You can do so over there. We've got merchandise, we've got Patreon, we've got Discord, we've got all kinds of stuff. So check that website out. We've also got some interesting tools on there, like D6 charge probability, which is really interesting for World Eaters players because there's so many elements at play there. When you got Blood Tide, you've got 3d6, drop the lowest with a CP reroll, the maths on that is quite challenging. So I've worked it all out, came out with a chart that you can reference, which is really helpful in game because you can pull it up and be like, okay, well, what's the actual probability that I'm going to make these charges? Because sometimes you want to make sure that you're going to do whichever charge is the least likely to succeed, but the most important. You want to do that one first because that's where you can use your CPU reroll. So being able to look at it and go, okay, you know, the Berserkers over here can do a 3d6 charge looking for an 8. The 8-bound over here are doing a 7-inch charge, but they're doing it only on 2d6. What's more likely to succeed? Because whichever one's least likely is the one I'm going to do first so that I can CPU reroll. Knowing the specific maths on that can be really helpful when making decisions in the game. So I've worked that out. There's a really cool tool on the website for that, and a bunch of other shit as well. So head over, check that out, leave your comments on this video, and as always, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.
Alrighty guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, all that good shit. Check out blogforthebloodgod.com if you want to show your support for the channel. You can join our Patreon over there where we have unique member benefits. We have a Discord server. We have apparel like the shirt I'm wearing now. We've got neoprene objective markers. We've got gaming mats. We've got dice. We've got all kinds of really cool ways that you can show your support for the channel over on blogforthebloodgod.com. So if you enjoyed this video, check that out. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.
Look for the Blood God.
The Warhammer community suffers from some of the most prohibitively expensive essentials in the world, especially Australian content creators. Every single day, Dean wants to create content, but he can't. Suffering from old, worn-out brushes, expensive model kits, and costly software and equipment, he can't endure much longer. Just look at this dirty paint water. Would you drink this? Would you let your child? Even a small monthly donation can help provide Dean with clean paint water, basic tools for survival, and access to life-saving information and education. So please, follow the links in the description below and find out how you can sponsor a mad cunt like Dean today and end the suffering. Suffering that is cruel, unsustainable, and your fault.
Do your objective markers ever get lost behind terrain or other models and become difficult to see? Do they ever get bumped and accidentally moved during a game? And do they ever spark arguments about distances? Well, not anymore. Introducing the blog for the Blood God, not even remotely patented neoprene objective markers. Made from the same material as astronaut suits, or maybe military equipment, or probably neither of those things, this 2mm thick neoprene synthetic rubber is tear resistant, water resistant, and is designed to last. But that's not all. The blog for the Blood God, not even remotely patented neoprene objective markers come in a variety of different designs and styles to suit any faction represented in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. These objective markers are a perfect gift for yourself or a friend, and are a perfect way to flex and show your opponent that not only are you a smarter, cooler, and better 40k player than them, but you also have more disposable income than they do. For the low price of $25, you'll get not one, not two, but 6 neoprene objective markers, perfectly designed for 9th edition Warhammer 40k. But wait, there's more. For a limited time only, people who sign up on Patreon to support Blog for the Blood God as a Skull Champion tier $5 per month member will gain access to a custom design service where I will design a unique logo to support their gaming club, like the one I did to the left here for the Potato Farmers local gaming club here in Melbourne. Follow the links in the description of this video to pick up your set today.